Welcome to another Snowcastle chess video. If you've been here before, you know the drill. 5+5 games to test out the openings from our Chessable course, Chess for Post Beginners, a complete opening repertoire. We're still a provisional rating. I do think once that gets established, I will keep my opponents as lower rated, because that will be, I think, more useful for the course. We'll still have some good quality games, but I think lower is better than higher for our purposes. So we have a 1900 and another black game. And another Sicilian. All right. And another bishop c4. Okay. So I was looking at something very similar even today. And I believe we should be starting with knight f6. If they go e5, we know our trick with d5 to counterattack the bishop. And if they play d4, is this the exact move order, or is this giving me a pawn? I think normally they're supposed to protect that pawn first, not just let me take it outright. Because even if they end up being able to play d takes c5, yeah, I'm not accepting a draw. Because I think that's just a mistake, and I think they realized that as well. It's possible they actually meant to play pawn to d3, I'm not sure, but we'll see how this game goes. Okay, well that was very nice that we get an immediate extra pawn. We could bring the knight back, but I don't mind letting it be traded if they play knight d2, since, hey, we're already up a pawn, so I don't have an opposition to trades. We could also play d5 straight away. Maybe I like that. And bishop b5, we can happily block that. I think that makes sense. Also, in case there's any kind of weird bishop takes f7, that's not there anymore. And then this one, I wasn't sure whether I would bring the knight back or take on d4. Because the knight comes back, they take on c5. Maybe they can actually hang on to that with b4. So I think we will follow through on that capture. Not our only option, but I think we're okay with that. And then if they want to argue, I would have a weak pawn on e4. Maybe not my favorite, but I'm okay with that. And now I think I will retreat the knight, just because I don't really want to let them take that. Could throw in queen a5 check, though. And then, like I said before, trying to trade this knight off. And if they play knight d2, I probably wouldn't take in that case, just because bishop takes after the queen again. But then they are blocking up their queenside pieces. So I would be fine to leave that knight where it is. And I'm taking a lot of time again, I know. That's going to happen, I think, with all these videos, is making sure I'm explaining the opening phase especially, and then we'll see. I know the last game, it almost got me into some trouble, but it hasn't fully cost us a game yet. Yes, so as mentioned, this one I think we will just retreat the knight. Yeah, maybe queen a5 wasn't all that useful, because if they castle and play knight b3, then we're a little bit delayed with what we probably should be doing. Especially because I think this pawn on e7 could be a little bit tender. Queen c2 doesn't scare me. It's attacking this bishop, but I am going to castle anyways. I think rook e1 would have been more annoying, and then I guess knight c6 was okay there. I don't want to play e6 until I have a chance to develop this bishop, although that might not be possible, especially if they play h3. Then I don't have either of bishop g4 or bishop f5, but I think we can start knight c6 pretty happily, and then knight b4 could come into play. For this, I would anticipate they might play knight c5 a little later. So I think I want to be able to play b6 and not put my queen in the way. Sort of undevelops, but I don't know that there is a better square. I could have considered queen a4 maybe. tried to play with that as a pin. And I'm already set. My default move is either knight to c6 or bishop to g4. Bishop f4 points at c7, but their knight has a real challenge connecting with that, so I think knight c6 first, get in the way. Sort of threatening knight to b4. I would figure maybe a3, and then I will go with bishop to g4. Yeah, you may have noticed they've been flagging in and out with their connection. They haven't dropped off yet. Okay, not sure where knight d2 goes next. It does reconnect the knights. Maybe they'd like to push a pawn. I do think knight b4 should definitely be played, though. Because even though this bishop isn't really affecting the kingside, g6 is a real strong point. I think it would be worth getting rid of it, and then if we go knight b4, queen moves, takes, bishop to f5. They come over to b3, point at b7. I don't think I have to do it, but I think it's still worthwhile. Would there be any case to not take the bishop immediately? I don't think there are any moves that I actively want to play that make it useful. Maybe I could play queen b6 with or without the capture. I think with. I don't really want to let them retreat the bishop. But if they play queen takes, I'm thinking maybe queen b6 ahead of bishop to f5, just because I've mentioned that queen b3 could be annoying, and I don't think I want to let them double the pawns by playing queen b6 afterwards. So queen does attack b2 if they feel that's worth defending. They might even leave it, just play rook c1. Half threaten bishop c7, but not really, because I think then I am in time with bishop to f5. So we'll go with this first, make sure the queen does get back onto an active square. I think the e7 pawn is still going to be the most annoying point in this position. Potentially they could put a piece on e5 as well. And I don't know if I said, I have been considering maybe knight h5 to chase after this bishop, although if it goes to e3, I don't know that it's worth chasing that way. So yeah, I think bishop f5 develop with tempo, and then we can get a rook definitely to c8, and then the other one, not sure yet, e8 or d8, or even try to double on the file. Wasn't really thinking about taking on b2. I don't think I want to open that file. I don't know if I want to play e6 though. It would fully solidify that pawn. I just don't know what happens to this bishop if I do that. Something like knight h4. Yeah, I think we'll start with rook e8. Shouldn't be too harmful. And then we're a little more flexible with the bishop. Because doubling on the e file with the queen in front is not very dangerous. Although I guess if they play rook c1, it's harder to play rook c8 because I don't want to play rook takes in response. Okay, and they are coming back towards c5. That might be a good cue for knight e4. Although if knight h4, I don't think I should be unhappy if they're thinking about f3. And maybe I could play knight to d7. Try to fight for a couple of those squares. I think just rook c8 first, maybe. Let them play knight c5, and then I can play knight d7. Play it that way. I don't know, this isn't an entirely comfortable position. And I'm letting my time get much too low at this point, so let's speed up. Worst case, I guess I can try to give back a pawn, but it shouldn't come to that. I don't think it's that bad yet. And actually, no, I think if they play knight c5, I like knight e4 better. So yeah, this isn't totally unanticipated. I have been wondering maybe bishop to c2 could be worthwhile. Because it attacks the knight, which is not a threat, but I wouldn't be unhappy to take it. And then again, if knight c5, likely knight to e4. Yeah, very happy, I think, to see that. If they trade rooks, I'm not worried about the e-pawn because they still have to take back the bishop. So that, I think, is safe. And then if they play pawn takes, I think I'm very happy to play e6. No more light square bishop to worry about, so just a very solid pawn chain. Okay, so yeah, I think right to e6. Yeah, if they try to do some fancy doubling with rook to c3, figuring if I take, maybe they wouldn't fix their pawns because b3 would hang, but I do have knight e4 to fight for control of that square. So that's nice and solid, good. If rook c1, I think we'll take that and play queen c6, close down that open file, and I'd be happy to play a pawn up endgame, especially with weakened b-pawns to play against and both of their minor pieces over on the other side of the board. So is rook c2 worthwhile? Would attack the b2 pawn, or we could just get going with minor pieces, like knight to e4. Or again, knight d7 to fight against a knight coming to e5. Because the knight's not that useful here. Or I could double and get the queen in front. That's a little risky tactically. Let's go with knight e4. Try to move towards a more active square. Just if they play knight e5, I'm not entirely sure what my point actually is. I think we'll go rook in front, rook c2. Everything I have is pretty solid and protected. This I didn't think was bad because I can play queen c6. Now I'm playing very carefully to make sure I'm not blundering anything. And if knight back to e5, arguably could take it, but I was thinking even queen c8 isn't entirely stupid. I don't think I want to take and leave my kingside dark squares really weak. Yeah, and we've already come over this, that I'm happy to do that. And now I also get to trade bishop for knight, which I think will give me a very safe endgame. So they obviously have to take that back. I'm not sure why they're thinking if they missed something here. But we will grab that knight. No knight forks, and now it's just a very safe pawn up endgame. So, use the king and attack pawns is what we said. I don't know about knight c5 just because of bishop e3, and the a pawn is healthier than that b pawn. But I don't know if I want to let their king walk up really fast. No, I think we will start with the king. Just need to make sure the knight doesn't get weirdly trapped, which actually, you know what, that might have been a threat if they played b4 and then f3. Do I have to be careful of that? I might actually. Okay, just to be safe then, I will go through with this. If they don't play bishop e3, then I think maybe a6. And this one, knight d3, looks like a very nice square. And bishop e3, I could choose a pawn to take, or I think if I play a6, they still can't save all their pawns. Because all three of them are hanging currently, and then which one is most important? Good question. Actually, sorry, knight b4 would be a huge blunder because of bishop c5, so let's be careful about that. Knight takes here, and yeah, this check comes through, but that's fine. Just the knight on a dark square, everything else is very safe. So I think we can get the king all the way forward, or at least to c6. If they attack the knight, I can happily come back to d7. And then, yeah, the d pawn is the one passed pawn currently, but it's not going very far as it stands, of course, with the white pieces in the way. But we can go chase down a pawn here, probably bishop c3, and then this knight can bounce around to c6. And once we win that pawn, then we can easily make a second further outside passed pawn, which should win very easily. They can push their pawns on the king side, but they shouldn't go far. Their king hasn't really been looking for a route in, so let's go with this. Which they probably shouldn't take, but it shouldn't really matter either. Actually, come to think of it, I think I could have played d4 on the last move. But okay, this one... Don't want to break my pawns up too much, so I think we take once, maybe. That looks pretty safe. But then this one we will ignore. And we'll come back to this, and I think now I would like to play d4. And if not, then maybe just a5, a4. I mean, odds are they move one of those two pieces, so likely won't see it appear. And I was thinking their king doesn't have a great path into the game. I could also start with just pushing the center pawns. That might be more effective. Because yeah, even if they win these two pawns, it's nowhere near in time for white to go chase after the h-pawn, so let's get going with my fastest pawns. If their king is distracted this way, that leaves even less opposition up the center. Definitely. And that, I think, was the easy way. If they go to c1, I have to figure out something to not lose this e-pawn. Probably something like knight here, king takes, knight g4, and then I should be in time, but this is even faster. Not sure how many moves I've been under 30 seconds for, but haven't felt the pressure too badly, especially once we were able to get major pieces off the board. And then as far as a practical way to finish this, I don't know, probably just sack the queen for the h-pawn. Doesn't have to be anytime soon. No stalemates, so let's say queen h3. Yeah, I don't think I have a real mate threat. Could be a little tricky and try to trap them into pushing their pawn here. Just because then queen f8 is mate. Likely they move the king. Okay, and then I think I can maybe try to set up a mating net here. Queen and knight working together, queen f7. If they push, I think, yeah, this is forced mating too, whichever way they step. So you don't even have to take that pawn. But of course, sacrificing the queen, push the a-pawn, very easy way to win. Either way, knight or queen, both nice checkmates. Okay. So not a ton to take away from our repertoire again. I do suspect they probably meant to play d3, but then we didn't have takebacks, so they thought they could try to offer a draw. If they do that, then what exactly is our starting move? Probably knight c6 first. And then we know our standard patterns with this and this. There might be a line with e6 and d5. I'm not 100% sure on that from here. The other point, of course, is if they play e5, we're always very ready for that with d5. So if they take the knight, these are always good positions for black. And if they don't take the knight, same thing. We get a really nice center pawn. If they take en passant, that's fine. If they come back, I think this was the one where it's bishop d7. We can happily counterattack this bishop because it isn't protected, and if they take, then we finally come back with the knight. And that's as much as we needed to know for our theory. Then for the rest of the game, I do think that was a safe pawn to grab. I don't know if I love my d5 choice. I think that was not our very simplest. I think I'm still okay with that one, but I think it's queen a5. That, in retrospect, was not a great use of time. I think I would have preferred to just move the knight right away, and then get along with this, and then, yeah, because I think the net effect was I played queen a5 and then back to d8 while they were developing their knight, which they did end up wasting some time with in return, but I don't think that was my most effective decision. I doubt it spoiled very much, but just ended up taking a little longer to fully settle all of the other pieces. But this, yeah, I think this was fine. Grab that bishop. I do still like this queen b6 choice. H3 takes away g4, but we still had f5. I think I'm still happy with this, because yeah, if we ever play e6 somewhere like this, then I think knight h4 is not very comfortable for this bishop. I don't really want to let them take it. I don't think that's going to do good things to my pawn structure. I don't really want to put it on e4, Knight takes probably doesn't bother me so much, but if they chase it with f3, they might be able to get away with that. I, of course, don't have access to d3, and if I go to c2, then we're really running risks with something like b3 and rook c1, and I'm not sure what happens there. So didn't want to get into any of that. Wanted to make sure that if they do play this knight h4, then we can always come back to d7, and that's safe enough. Still up a pawn, so we don't need to play all that forcingly. In most cases, we can afford to play a little safer. And then here, yeah, rook c8, where I started feeling like I was getting low on the clock. My other big option, I think, is knight e4. But then I think this is where I wasn't sure about. Knight h4, likely bishop comes back. I don't mind knight to c5, I'm okay to take that, but if they play f3, then my knight has to go back again. And then they do get the knight to c5, and maybe I've lost my way a little bit. I don't think we have any tricks with like a bishop takes d4, trying to use these dark squares. It's the one risk that white runs, but I don't think there's anything that actually shows up with it. But this I liked, and I was very happy that they let me take the knight. What else would it have been? I think it would have been knight c5, and I mentioned now I liked this better because we can guarantee a trade of knights. And I don't think rook c1 is ever effective, because I don't have bishop a4 because their knight covers that square. But I think if we do maybe the other rook, if we do this, then we can take here. If they take here, that's fine, it's just an equal trade. And if they take here, then we can always take back with something that protects the bishop, whether it's the queen first or the rook recapturing afterwards. So I felt like I would have been okay with that. And then once we get all these trades, I guess not here exactly. Here it was still a little clumsy. I don't really see white creating threats or doing anything dangerous, but here especially, this just makes it, I would say, automatic, honestly, for a player of my level. With the one caveat, I guess, that I briefly had to hold myself from taking on b4, because then there is bishop c5 check, and we've lost our knight. But as long as we don't fall for something like that, good habit, keep your pieces on light squares, which for the most part they were, just maybe they wouldn't have been at that exact moment, then it was very low risk. Just don't let their king somehow walk in, but our knight very nicely covers a couple of those squares. And then the focus is getting a passed pawn that we can actually push, because like I said, we do have one passed pawn already on d5, but it's not going very far, so we need a more effective one. They couldn't do anything to stop me from winning b4. If they don't try to mess something up on the king side, they just, I don't know, shuffle somehow or play it safer, then the really easy path would be a5 and a4. And if we trade the a pawns, then the b pawn can come after it. I think here I still would have come back to this, though, and maybe tried to play d4, or I don't know. Hard to feel 100% comfortable with how you organize your pieces, but most of the roads should lead to a good place for black. And then yeah, this was a lot faster, and I mentioned if they play bishop to c1. That's the last question, because they're keeping an eye on this pawn, so of course we can't push the d pawn. And we also don't really want to play e2, because then they play bishop d2, and okay, which one of our pawns is actually going to be promoted? Maybe we could get away with this, but then I'm not entirely sure. Actually, maybe I am sure which pawn wins the race, because I don't know that they can actually sack their bishop for this pawn, come to think of it. So if we do it like this, they'd like to say, oh, just move my bishop somewhere and capture your pawn when it promotes, but there isn't a square, because all of these squares are covered. So that was probably good enough as well. But what I had said was I think I would have played likely knight e5 and then to here, and then played this way, which looks like it wins by a tempo or two, I guess. Like, even if they take here, then their pawn gets stuck. We can sacrifice for that. That makes it very clear. And if they don't, well, then same thing, I guess. If that pawn pushes, we take it, and otherwise we're just pushing the pawns through. So something like that. I don't think there was any risk really with the h-pawn, but I guess still worth being conscious of, that they did briefly at least get a passed pawn. And the rest is just tidy work. If they push, then I was just trying to set this up for the fastest win, but it ended up being pretty quickly anyways. Okay, so let's check for some quick computer conclusions. So hyper-accelerated dragon, but another one of these bishop to c4s. Knight f6, and sure, okay, for completeness, let's go check on our repertoire, just to make sure that we did at least play our first few moves correctly. Which was here. I think this is the exact same place as our last game, just that they did not play either knight c3, d3, any of the good moves. They did push d4, which I don't think I even need to leave a note for, but we'll see. Yeah, I don't think there's much to say about that, just that they either mouse slipped or played something weird. So, anyways, d4, yeah, I guess not a perfect pawn, but still a pawn. If they take here, then yeah, of course there's the standard queen a5 takes on c5. Okay, I guess we can say that white is supposed to have some compensation here, because our kingside is kind of barren, especially if this knight gets chased away. If we follow the main line knight d2, can't play queen takes because of the knight, or is c4 hanging? What's going on there? Maybe there we have something with bishop takes f7, yeah. Because then they still recover the material, but now we're asking what's going on with black's king. Is there anything else in contrast there? No, that's just why we shouldn't play queen takes, but we can get away with knight takes. Okay, if they have to come up with these rook b1s and b4s, I'm not unhappy with that. Because if they castle, then yeah, that should give us enough time to escape and just be playing with our extra pawn. So okay, some nebulous compensation, but I would require very accurate play to show any kind of it. And here, yeah, we're already trying to play kind of safely. I did mention I preferred knight to f6. It looks like they're fairly similar. We can leave the knight there. I just didn't especially feel like letting this happen. But I guess, sure, okay. If we're chasing the knight around even further, and they're still really undeveloped, then yeah, it's not like it's something I had to be worried about. And actually, I'm noticing they couldn't take because they would just be losing this pawn on d4 whenever the knight moves, because our bishop is now on that pawn. So that, yeah, that would have been fair enough. But no big deal. Black is still very clearly better, even if it's not officially a full pawn's worth on the evaluation. Nothing scary happens here. We can play queen b6, okay. For the time being, I'd say, I guess, if they play knight c5, then even just knight d7 challenges it right away. But on the other hand, we can also just ignore it, because it's not on a square that a knight usually ends up on, I think. So it's not attacking, well, not really attacking anything, I guess. So maybe a couple of my considerations in this game were not all that well founded. But even so, still been at worst about a 0.7 up to over -1. Knight b4. Don't have to play it, but it's fine. I liked my queen b6 just because bishop to f5, queen b3. I wasn't entirely happy with what we're doing here. Of course, there's no rook to b8 because we can't forget about that bishop on f4. Normally you'd play something like queen b6, but I don't know. I didn't love this. I guess again our point is their pieces are not in good shape to play against any kind of weakness like this. Like if there's a knight on c3, maybe it comes to b5, supports it with a4. That could be annoying, but that's not where the knight is. It's on a very different square. Not sure if there's a good way to rig that to show what it would be like if it were on that other square, but okay. Then we get to develop fairly quickly. Did see it briefly flashed up. Yeah, we could take on b2, but I didn't feel that was necessary to engage in. So we are just improving pieces, and yeah, at this point we do like our bishop c2. We could also play knight e4, and yeah, it just doesn't seem like this was anything to worry about either. I was aware the knight could come back to d6. I guess at this point I didn't really consider that. Does look like a very good square, because we're fine if they take it, and we can also go to c4 next. So that was entirely viable as well. As is, it turned out well. I said I was happy to take that. e6, again, not trying to be very accurate, just playing solidly and nursing our extra pawn. And yeah, a lot of sweat about not massively consequential decisions, I think. But rook c2 is good. We're trying to attack some stuff. I did miss again, yeah, that I could have just taken on d4. Even so, this was entirely fine. Healthy -2 for a while here, and yeah, especially with this one, not that it concedes the game, but as I said a couple times, it makes it much easier for black to play. Because even if I get to take this pawn, I don't know, it's not entirely clear how we keep attacking from there. Like, I guess maybe the queen comes into c2, but what exactly is my target? I don't think f2 is a big one. But still true in the reverse as well, that white also doesn't have any targets. So that sort of explains why there are multiple ways for black to play. But this, yeah, makes it very easy. We get to trade that. And I think we won't get much on the evaluation from there. This, a little surprised to see flag at all, actually. I thought that was just going to be a low depth point, but why would this be anything less good? I'm not sure. Like, normally I don't sweat a difference like a -1, but almost -4 coming down to -2 is a little strange. Oh, actually, you know what? That is right. I did mention there is this point where we have to be careful about this knight being trapped. But is that actually true, or was I missing something weird? Like, just if we set this up. Ah, okay, yeah. We do have the knight g3 square. That's what I missed. And then we can happily come back to another light square. Okay. Then I'm not entirely sure why this is any less good for black, but I'm going to say -2 is good enough, and we'll just roll with it. So knight comes around, and yeah, knight d3 was a great square to win another pawn. Last point, not taking this pawn at any point because of bishop to c5. And then we will fast forward our way to the end, I think. Maybe I'll check one last point here if there was anything weird about the pawn race, which I doubt there was. Yeah. Rapidly accelerating evaluation. E2 looks like it would have worked. D3, of course, might actually still be good for black. I'm not sure, but no reason to give up that pawn. And then our other point was, yeah, knight e5 is also plenty good. And I think this was the likeliest way that the game would have gone if they had played bishop c1. So that's good to confirm. And then I think not much after that. So we will leave that there. Okay, so not too much for big takeaways from this game. It was a more straightforward game as far as higher rated player versus low rated player. Don't think we had any real difficulties. Some uncertainty, but nothing that really caused alarm or any, I think, identifiable mistakes, let's say. So I think we can be pretty happy about that, playing with an extra pawn. And we will leave it there. So, thank you for watching, and we'll be back in a couple more days with another game.